I didn't know that. I never did it before in my life. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. What comes after 4?
Yep.
I hope that anybody listening happens to like a little bit of humor. And as an old English prof, I love humor that is involved in using the wrong words or in the wrong arrangement of the sentences and so on. Of course, that happened in some of my freshman themes in my classes, but I'm just going to share with you now a few items from a lovely book by Dick Lederer called Anguished English. Anguished English. Works out pretty well, I think. For example, well, anyway, I hope that you'll understand a little bit about, for example, let's just use any name here. The Reverend Any Name spoke briefly, much to the delight of the audience. That kind of thing. That was not exactly came out the way that it really meant, I think. And a misspelled word can change it tremendously. These are from the book by Dick Lederer. The choir will meet at the Larson House for fun and sinning. I think it was singing, supposed to be there. That can make quite a difference. Well, that was under the subject of churches, of course. And there was another one here on something that was on a church postcard, the Sunday sermon, how much can a man drink, with hymns from a full choir. Wow. And then we take the word heated and we just forget the E in there, the first E, and it comes out for rent. A 6-room hated apartment. No misspelled words in this one at all, but still it comes out totally wrong, doesn't it? Fellow looking for a job, man, honest, will take anything. That creates a slight problem there, doesn't it? And again, if just eliminating one letter in a word can make a tremendous difference. The R is missing in a key word here. Save regularly in our bank. You will never re-get it. You'll never get your money back. They meant regret it, of course, but it didn't turn out that way, did it? No, of course not. And so there's real problems. Well, there are some others that I think I just love to share because it's the kind of thing that can happen where we oh my, there was a little ad here about a restaurant. It said open 7 days a week and weekends too. That's well, how about this one? This kind of poorly directs you, I think. On a country shop, the sign said, "We buy junk and sell antiques." Yes, that's not very good for either one, if you think about it. Well, there's lots of others here, of course. Let's see, we could say, I'll use my own name here because I don't want to use anybody else's name. But suppose that you've got a special weatherman and he really knows everything. But what if it should be said this way? Here, Lyle Crist, the complete dope on the weather. Yeah, the person would be the dope, wouldn't it? And then, of course, headlines can really be problems coming out the wrong way. For federal is abbreviated often into Fed, but if you don't put a period after it, this headline came out where William Kelly, 87, was Fed secretary. Probably why he passed, if that's the case, huh? And then we have all sorts of possibilities with headlines. Just what if the students in college now they're eating more vegetables than they used to? Is that all right? But look at the headline on the story: collegians are turning to vegetables. Don't think that's quite true, but that's the way it comes out. And so it is with language. Are we using them the right way? All those 600,000 words. Are we getting a confused situation in some way about whatever it might be? Spelling the wrong word, an implication that was not intended, and so on. Oh, yes, there can be all sorts of possibilities. Stop beating a dead horse to death. How about that? That was a headline. And it was about something about people who were attacking dead animals, I guess. Maybe in the wrong way. Well, my final one here for our little brief while together here. This one. This happens. Now, this is from the book Anguished English by Dick Lederer. These are not original, anything that I made up, no. But here in a letter sent to some legal circumstance, I am forwarding my marriage certificate and 6 children I have on a half sheet of paper. They're all a bunch of small kids, aren't they? Small program. Back with you next week. Well, I just want to share with you a couple of thoughts about Mount Union College. Yes, right now. Motus Unionius. Well, actually, just wanted to indicate this. 2 differences that are somewhat in the picture today as compared to when I taught here way back. Yep. I started back in the mid-50s and was there for 36 years, and I loved it in the English department. The major change that I see today with regard to Mount Union College students and those that were here in so many years ago, it's quite simple. Back in those days, way back in those days, students carried their books in their hands. Yes, they used their fingers and their hands to carry the books around campus. Of course, you don't quite see that today, do you? Everybody has a carrying of the books on their backs with one of those special containers. Yes, so you've got both hands free. I don't know what the advantage is there, but I'm sure I do. But it's just that I think if I see a student today actually carrying 3 or 4 books in his hand or her hand, I may have to say, hey, are you a student of mine? See, the old retired prof will raise that question. Well, anyway, it's a change. Of course, the other change is that way back when, you could walk across the campus without bumping into other people. Not quite as many students. In fact, I'd say about a third. Certainly less than half of what we have now. It's a lovely campus. The promotional activities are very valid. I'm not criticizing in any way, except that just kind of a lighthearted way, saying, yeah, that's a big difference. I mean, you started down the sidewalk back in those many years ago. You could probably close your eyes and stay on the sidewalk without bumping into anybody. But not quite today. On the other hand, of course, I'd have to say with those students who were here, I think they felt their textbooks a little more than we do now. That is because they had to hold them in their hands all the time. That makes a little bit of a difference. Well, so be it. There's wonderful people in the classroom, wonderful students and the professors. I'm very grateful for all of that. It's just that sometimes when I walk on the campus, I have to, what are those things on their back? What are those packages that they've got on their back? And, we used to say back seat. If you were in the classroom and you're in the last row, you were in a back seat. Well, I don't know. I guess the books are in a back bag now. And that's one of the differences, and I think it's progress. I'm not the greatest supporter of it, but I think it's maybe progress. You can have a little more time to do other things. Well, anyway, that's about it. You see, with Lyle, we went way back. Yes, way back. Well, maybe it was a history course today. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't much of a program. But just those 2 items. the number of students and no hands carrying the books. At least it seems that way. I see we've got some new sidewalks on the campus to get to new buildings, and that's very fine. Of course, it all is. Great campus. And, well, the old prop, be back with you next week at the same time. I'll go out and see if I can find anything else now that I think might be the same as it was. Bye-bye. A treasury of humor. Yes. Oh, that's not me. No. Don't get the wrong idea. It's not me. It's the title of a book by Clyde Murdoch, and it has lots of good humor in it, and I just thought I might share a few of them with you. For example, here's a very logical item. The tourist stops at a combination service station and general store in the country, and an old man was basking in the sun, and he was holding a piece of rope, just a short piece of rope. So the tourist, figuring, well, I'm going to learn something about this country, says, "What is this rope for, sir? Could you tell me?" The old man says, "It's a weather gauge." Ooh, this is exciting, a piece of rope for a weather gauge. The tourist then, very puzzled, he says, "How can a piece of rope tell the weather?" And the old man says, "Well, that's simple. When it swings back and forth, the wind is blowing. And when it gets wet, it's raining." You can't argue with that. I like that very much. See, it's one of those very important considerations. Yes. Humor. A treasury of humor, or at least so it says. Well, somebody, what is this, a woman's world or a man's world? Well, one of the jokes here, now this is not my own judgment exactly, but it's not a man's world, no. Because, no, when he was born, they say, "How is the mother?" And when he's married, they say, "Oh, isn't she a lovely bride?" And when he dies, they say, "How much did he leave her?" And the net result there is not a man's world, it's a woman's world. Take that for whatever you want. I'll go along with it. I think this is pretty good. This is a joke, understand, but a rookie policeman, he was answering questions on an examination paper to see if he could get kept on the police force. And the question he was asked was, how would you go about dispersing a crowd? See, how would you get rid of the crowd? And his answer was, take up an offering. They'll do it every time. Pass around an offering. Little box. Everybody will get up and leave, yeah. Well, see, that's kind of... Well, we have to realize we're just saying it here as a kind of a joke. Oh, is this one funny? Yes. One of those, well, let's see, could this actually have ever happened this way? See, the farmer, he looks up his apple tree, and there's a little boy up there in the apple tree. Oh, and the farmer is mad. Boy, what are you doing up there in my apple tree? You know what the little boy said? Well, one of your apples fell down, sir, and I'm trying to put it back. That kind of takes care of it. Here's another one. We got to be honest. Oh, yes. And on an application blank for a new driver's license, there was the question, have you ever been arrested? See? And so the applicant here for the new driver's license, he wrote no. But the next question was, why? Why have you never been arrested? And so the applicant put down, I've never been caught. Honest there, huh? Very I think that's kind of very effective. And, of course, then some people have to laugh at this, even though they may not think it's very funny at all, particularly a dentist would not think this very humorous. I suppose a man in the dentist chair cries, "Here, doc, you haven't pulled the right tooth." And the dentist replies, I know it, my man, but I'm getting closer to it. So you see, It happens. Oh, my. Well, this one requires just a teeny bit more awareness as you listen to it. It's a brief one. I think it's humorous. What do you think? The new minister was very strict about keeping the Sabbath. And after the morning service, he called one of the deacons into the study, and he said, "Deacon Jones, I heard you went to the ball game last Sunday instead of coming to church." The deacon says, "Oh, that's a lie. And what's more, I still have one of the fish to prove it." He didn't go to the ball game. But now the minister does know where he went. And so it goes. Well, that's from the book, A Treasury of Humor. And there can be other kinds of humor, of course. There can be even humor in the classroom, humor on campus, of course. Can happen in many ways. And when it does, well, then I suppose it's just, well, it's the kind of thing that you know, it's something that can happen, humorous can happen in real experience. I'm thinking of the time, and I'll conclude with this. But I never forget in a final American literature examination, I thought this one young lady might have been looking at somebody else's paper, and I went up to her and said, "I hope I didn't catch you cheating there." Something very, very light, I said it that way. "I hope I didn't catch you cheating there." I'll never forget. She looked up at me in a perfectly loud voice, and she said, "I hope you didn't catch me cheating either." I was trying to do the right thing. That's one thing about professors. You keep learning what's the right thing to do. And you learn it by doing the wrong thing. Back with you next week. Have you ever had the feeling that you're trapped, that you're cornered somehow, and you don't know how to get out? Well, it's happened to the best of us on occasion, I suppose, and it happened once to Mark Twain in his writing. See, he could dash off a Connecticut Yankee or The Prince and the Pauper or The Innocents Abroad or Tom Sawyer or whatever, but there was one story that got him in a trap. And if you've ever tried writing and find yourself unsure how to continue, particularly a work of fiction, then consider Twain and his tremendous story titled A Medieval Romance. Well, on second thought, you ought to keep in mind, too, that there's such a thing as April Fool's Day. But anyway, it was night. This way it starts. It was night. Stillness reigned in the grand old feudal castle of Klugenstein. The year was 1222. And far away up in the tallest of the castle towers, a single light glimmered. A secret council was being held there. The stern old lord of Klugenstein sat in the chair of state meditating. Well, you see, that's the opening paragraph of the story. Conflict is one of the succession to the throne, but you see, no son is around, no. And a daughter is to be given a title of masculinity so that the throne will remain in the family. So the daughter is going to be clothed, well, she's clothed so as to hide her true gender. She cries, spare me, O father." And he says, "Oh, tush, woman, leave the owls to croak." Well, chapter 2 then. Now, this is a Mark Twain story. Chapter 2 is entitled Festivity and Tears, and then chapter 3 is titled The Plot Thickens. It's because primarily the son, now named Conrad, has of all things become the object of affection of a Princess Constant. Well, you see, there's a slight problem there, isn't there? And chapter 4 then is titled The Awful Revelation. Pretty good story, huh? What is it? It's that Princess Constant, who is unmarried, she has given birth to a child. And thus we come to the frightful catastrophe. That's the final chapter, a remarkable chapter, in which Conrad, who is Lord of Klugenstein, presides over a court of justice against Constance. He announces to her, "By ancient law of the land, except you produce the partner of your guilt and deliver him to the executioner, you must surely die. You must name the father of your child." This princess, see? And there's a solemn hush, and then Constance slowly turns, and her eyes gleaming with hate, she points a finger to Conrad and says, "Thou art the man!" Well, that's a problem. Because, of course, a problem for Conrad, well, you see, but it isn't Conrad. But a girl who has taken the throne, has taken the name of the man that they want to keep the throne in the family. Now, let's see now. Is Conrad a man? No, Conrad is a woman posing as a man because the father is the only way to keep it in the family, the throne. Well, it's pretty exciting, isn't it? It's a real good soap opera kind of thing. Now for the dramatic finish. Have you ever felt well-trapped? How are you going to end this one? How are you going to get out of this? How are you going to everybody happy at the end of it? Mark Twain felt trapped. He didn't know what to do, and as a result, the novel does not end. Twain merely writes, quote, "The remainder of this thrilling story will not be found in this or any other publication." And so he concludes to his readers, quote, "The truth is I have gotten my hero or heroine into such a particularly close place, I do not see how I am ever going to get him or her out of it again. Therefore, I wash my hands of the whole business." And he said that's the end of the story. You can see it can happen even to the best of the writers. Yeah, Twain added, "I thought this was going to be easy enough to straighten out that little difficulty, but it looks different now." Well, his medieval romance story never made the bestseller lists, as did Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. Come to think of it, I doubt that Twain ever intended it that way. He probably just having a good laugh on all of us. And so, the end of that specifically unusual story, The Medieval Romance by Mark Twain. And that's been my medieval program for today. Back with you next week. Well, I'm told that the temperature in Phoenix is always above 100 in the month of August. Now sometimes you might have to add another city to the list, don't you think? I mean, after all, we've had some pretty hot weather in the month of August, right here in Alliance, haven't we? It was so hot that I remember one time the flowers on our wallpaper wilted and fell off. One person in Alliance asked, "What would you call this weather we're having?" I said I'd call it scholarly weather. "Oh, why that?" "Well, because it offers more degrees than anything else." Yeah, I said that. And, of course, if you think about it, you know that educational term, PhD, Doctor of Philosophy, PhD. I figured it probably stood for pretty hot days. Oh, well, when we had those very hot Augusts, this past August wasn't too bad. No. But sometimes, oh, my goodness, it was a good time to rise at 4 a.m. and, put in a good day's work by 9 a.m. But clerk in a store in town didn't quite make the grade, however. I remember about mid-afternoon a sweating customer walked down the store aisle, and the clerk didn't help the cause by saying, "What respectable person would ever venture out of doors on a day like this?" Well, anyway, when the weather dominates our thought, all sorts of possibilities exist. Consider, for instance, the role of the weatherman, the one who stands by the TV cameras, tells us how hot it'll continue to be. Viewers begin to think nasty things about the weatherman. I mean, I wondered throughout the month of August a couple of years ago about the wisdom of a local car dealer. Yeah, he had billboards along the highways near Alliance that feature a picture of a Cleveland TV weatherman endorsing the cars. I always thought, well, let's see now, in August, is the weatherman the best person to endorse the car that you construct? I mean, anyway, sometimes those weather predictors can be a bit off target, of course. Yeah, the story goes that when Noah got on the ark, the weatherman predicted slightly cloudy. And out of the same joke book, oh yeah, I should see that was a joke book where I found that one. But out of that same book comes the witticism that, quote, "The weather was so dry in this town, it's the first time I ever saw anybody baptized with Dr. Pepper." Well, weather prompts valid concerns, of course, and a lighthearted counts as well. My favorite of the weather humor of this story, my favorite of it, is The weather forecaster, whose predictions were seldom accurate, he went to the network manager and asked to be given a job in another state. The manager said, "Well, why don't you like it here?" And the weather forecaster sighed, and he said, "Oh, the climate here just doesn't agree with me." Well, but for many others, when that was that very hot month in August, a couple of years ago, well, the climate may seem not to agree with us, but we still have to recognize that when it's really hot outside, the local weather has always earned good grades, hasn't it? 92, 94, 95, 98. Almost perfect. Back with you next week.